Hello, I'm Willie from the Ozarks, and we're ready for our July 23rd of 2022's lesson in A Course in Miracles Workbook for Students from the original edition, lesson 204. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. The name of God is my inheritance. The name of God is my inheritance, which is a review of lesson 184. And the write-up says, God's name reminds me that I am his son, not slave to time, unbound by laws which rule the world of sick illusions, free in God, forever and forever, one with him. The name of God is my inheritance. God's name reminds me that I am his son, not slave to time, unbound by laws which rule the world of sick illusions, free in God, forever and forever, one with him. The name of God is my inheritance. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. Okay, well, we'll come back and look at that one more time before we close. Let's go take a look in our next section in the text reading. The laws of chaos, in chapter 23, the war against yourself, and the laws of chaos. We'll read. It'll take us a couple, 3 days to get through that section, so we'll read a little bit though. I wanted to tell you a little bit about. Look at this little thing. This is called an ash gourd. It's got a lot of different names, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about it. It kind of tastes like a cucumber. And I'm particularly interested in it because of Satguru's recommendation that there's 3 foods you ought to eat every day for health. They're high pranic foods, and you got positive pranic foods, negative pranic foods, and neutral pranic foods. Well, the high pranic foods are the ones that are really good for you. The neutrals are fine. Negatives you want to avoid. Okay, well, there's these 3 things. He said ground nuts, which are peanuts. I recommend those organic for sure. Raw honey, and the first one on his list was what he calls the ash gourd or the wax gourd. You can make juice out of them. You can cut them up like a cucumber and mix them in a salad. You can steam them, do it in stir fries, just any way you want to. But he considers those a very good food for your energy, your psychic energy, really, but in all ways. Ash gourd, it's also known as a wax gourd, white gourd, winter gourd, tallow gourd, ash pumpkin, winter melon, Chinese preserving melon, puhul, and it's a vine, very large fruits eaten as a vegetable when mature. I found all that on Wikipedia. Oh, the actual scientific or Latin name is Benincasa hispida. So, and it's the only species in that genus, the Benincasa. So, anyway, that's your wax gourd. And I wanted to tell you a little bit more about the. I wanted to show you. I went ahead and picked a leaf off of a yarrow. Achillea millefolium. There, see, it's feather leaf or thousand leaf. I think it's been called that. You can see why. Look at all the little leaves. Squirrel tail was another one. Doesn't it look like a little squirrel tail? Let's see what it says about it. I found this on, where'd I find that? wildfoodsandmedicine.com. Good website. Achillea millefolium, yarrow. Dry in baskets or paper bags. So you can dry those, put them in a paper bag and just let them dry, or in baskets. Then chop them up. Of course, you chop them up before you dry them. But when it says 1 tablespoon of chopped flour and leaves per cup of boiling water. Steep for 10 to 15 minutes. And they're recommended drinking about 3 cups a day. And drink it hot to break fever. Remember, this is a food that you could get too much of, when we understand, but in balance, in a small amount. And they're thinking 3 cups a day is not a problem. Drink hot to break a fever. You can make a tincture if you'll add 1 part herb to 2 parts of alcohol. And that alcohol needs to be at least 50% alcohol content, which would be 100 proof or higher. And then, we learned to keep it in a dark place, shake it up every day for 6 weeks. Use 10 to 40 drops per day is what they're suggesting. Other names, the squirrel tail, warrior plant, thousand leaf, I just mentioned all those. And of course you can take that, what you mix in your alcohol, your tincture, and add it to, like coconut oil, jojoba oil, and beeswax, and make a cream or an ointment. And anyway, so you can use it for that way too. All right, let's take a look at the laws of chaos. The laws of chaos. And before we read that, let me just mention to you something we read yesterday. I want to bring our attention back. I read it twice, but I really want to bring your attention. This is huge, and I really want you to get this. In yesterday's reading, the irreconcilable belief section, or paragraph 13, he said, "You will remember what you know. You will remember what you know. You know it, and you'll remember what you know when you've learned you cannot be in conflict." Isn't that something? We need to look at all of the experiences of the day and use our power of interpretation and the Holy Spirit's guidance. Step back and let Him lead the way to see the world never in conflict. Everything that's happened is your choice and is gently planned by one whose only concern or care is your good. So the Holy Spirit. So I want to read that again. You will remember what you know. You want self-realization? Well, this is the ticket. When you have learned, you cannot be in conflict. One illusion about yourself can battle with another, yet the war of 2 illusions is a state where nothing happens. There is no victor and there is no victory. The truth stands radiant, apart from conflict, untouched and quiet in the peace of God. Okay, I just wanted to kind of, mention that one to you. And let's see. And of course, I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. He really wants us to get this, okay? The name of God is my inheritance. God's name reminds me that I am His son, not slave to time, unbound by laws which rule the world of sick illusions, free in God, forever and forever one with Him. The name of God is my inheritance. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. Okay, let's take a little look. The laws of chaos. The laws of chaos, and he's got the word laws in quotes because they're really not laws if it's chaos, is it? The laws of chaos can be brought to light, though never understood. They can never be understood. So don't really try, when sometimes I don't understand why that person did that, you might think to yourself. Well, don't worry too much about it because there's not really a reason to understand many things that we do. Chaotic laws are hardly meaningful and therefore out of reason's sphere, yet they appear to constitute an obstacle to reason and to truth. Let us then look upon them calmly, that we may look beyond them, understanding what they are, not what they would maintain. It is essential it be understood what they are for, because it is their purpose to make meaningless and to attack the truth. Here are the laws that rule the world you made, and yet they govern nothing, and need not be broken, merely looked upon and gone beyond. Okay, something I want to point out in that paragraph. Let us then look upon them calmly. I just can't hardly emphasize enough the importance of when you see something that kind of makes you upset or discourages you, or maybe you react to it like that's not right. and you feel like you've got to be indignant and defend your space, he's trying to get us to say, look at these things calmly. Very, very important. You don't need to add the extra dimension of defensiveness and anger. And let us then look upon them calmly, that we may look beyond them, understanding what they are, not what they would maintain. It is essential to be understood what they are for. It is essential it be understood what they are for, because it is their purpose to make meaningless and to attack the truth. Here are the laws that rule the world you made, and yet they govern nothing and need not be broken, merely looked upon and gone beyond. Paragraph 20. The first chaotic law is that the truth is different for everyone. Like all these principles, this one maintains that each is separate and has a different set of thoughts, which sets him off from others. This principle evolves from the belief there is a hierarchy of illusions, some of them more valuable and therefore true. Each one establishes this for himself and makes it true by his attack on what another values. And this is justified because the values differ, and those who hold them seem to be unlike and therefore enemies. 21. Seems like I wanted to say something about that. This principle evolves from the belief there is a hierarchy of illusions. Some are more valuable and therefore true, or more true, you might even say. But we don't want to see the illusions are illusions. And if they don't have love in them, and they don't make you feel peaceful, they don't deserve any of your attention. Matter of fact, you need to look beyond them and realize that love is the only reality, because nothing real can be threatened, and love is the only reality. Nothing unreal exists, and herein lies the peace of God. Paragraph 21. Think how this seems to interfere. Let's back up just a little bit in that paragraph before. Each one establishes this for himself and makes it true by his attack on what another values. And this is justified because the values differ and those who hold them seem to be unlike and therefore enemies. 21. Think how this seems to interfere with the first principle of miracles. What's the first principle, y'all remember? There's no order of difficulty in miracles. That's the first principle. So he says, think how this seems to interfere with the first principle of miracles, to think that some illusions are more important than others. For this establishes degrees of truth among illusions, making it appear that some of them are harder to overcome than others. If it were realized that they are all the same and equally untrue, it would be easy then to understand that miracles apply to all of them. Errors of any kind can be corrected because they are untrue. When brought to truth instead of to each other, they merely disappear. No part of nothing can be more resistant to the truth than can another. No part of nothing. No part of nothing can be more resistant to the truth than can another. Remember, we want to learn to practice forgiveness really, really well. And what all we're forgiving is the illusions that we're conjuring up in our mind, that we've been programmed to think along. We're trying to now step back and say, okay, there's another way to interpret this where I'm not in conflict and no one's guilty. All right? This is what we want to learn to do. The second law of chaos, dear indeed to every worshiper of sin, is that each one must sin and therefore deserves attack and death. This principle, closely related to the first, is the demand that errors call for punishment and not correction. For the destruction of the one who makes the error places him beyond correction and beyond forgiveness. What he has done is thus interpreted as an irrevocable sentence upon himself, which God himself is powerless to overcome. Sin cannot be remitted, being the belief the Son of God can make mistakes for which his own destruction becomes inevitable. Paragraph 23. And that first sentence, the second law of chaos, dear indeed to every worshiper of sin, is that each one must sin and therefore deserves attack and death. Okay, I know many of us have come from that thinking where everyone sins, but that is a misunderstanding. Yeah, we all make mistakes, but they're not sins is what he's trying to get us to see. And besides that, they're in the past, and we only bring what's real in the present moment. I'd like to say a lot more about that, but let's just keep going. Give that a lot of your thought, though. Think what this seems... Okay, let's back up. For the destruction of the... the second law of chaos, dear indeed to every worshiper of sin, is that each one must sin and therefore deserves attack and death. This principle, closely related to the first, is the demand that errors call for punishment and not correction. For the destruction of the one who makes the error places him beyond correction and beyond forgiveness. What he has done is thus interpreted as an irrevocable sentence upon himself, which God himself is powerless to overcome. Sin cannot be remitted, being the belief the Son of God can make mistakes for which his own destruction becomes inevitable. Paragraph 23. Think what this seems to do to the relationship between the Father and the Son. Now it appears that they can never be one again, for one must always be condemned by the other. Now are they different and enemies, and their relationship is one of opposition, just as the separate aspects of the Son meet only to conflict, but not to join. One becomes weak, the other strong by his defeat. And fear of God and of each other now appears as sensible, made real by what the Son of God has done both to himself and his Creator. The arrogance on which the laws of chaos stand could not be more apparent than emerges here. I'm thinking, here is a principle which would define what the Creator of reality must be, what he must think, and what he must believe, and how he must respond believing it. It is not seen as even necessary that he be asked about the truth of what has been established for his belief. His Son can tell him this, and he has but the choice whether to take his word for it or be mistaken. This leads directly to the third preposterous belief that seems to make chaos eternal. For if God cannot be mistaken, then he must accept his Son's belief in what he is and hate him for it. See how the fear of God is reinforced by this third principle? Now it becomes impossible to turn to him for help in misery, for now he has become the enemy who caused it and to whom appeal is useless. He has become the enemy who caused it and to whom appeal is useless. Nor can salvation lie within the Son, whose every aspect seems to be at war with him and justified in its attack. And now is conflict made inevitable and beyond the help of God. And now salvation must remain impossible because the Savior has become the enemy. There can be no release and no escape. Wow. That's the laws of chaos. It's starting to get dark out here. I've had to put my glass on so I can see well. Maybe we better call that a good stopping place for today. We'll pick up there tomorrow. Back on our lesson 204. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. The name of God is my inheritance. The name of God is my inheritance. God's name reminds me that I am His son, not slave to time, unbound by laws which rule the world of sick illusions, free in God, forever and forever, one with Him. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. The name of God is my inheritance. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. Thank you all so much for joining me out here at sunset. Until tomorrow, practice often the idea that I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me. The name of God is my inheritance. The name of God is my inheritance. I am not a body, I am free, for I am still as God created me.